Our next session is a sponsored session presented by our partner Parsons, and I would like to welcome on stage Rida Hamza, Vice President, Global Business Development at Parsons Federal Critical Infrastructure Protection, who will be talking about how the IoT is melding IT and OT cybersecurity risks. Please join me in welcoming him. Do you need this?
Yes.
Music go, music go.
Thank you for having me. It was very interesting discussions, actually. AI is generating a lot of interest, and definitely we need to protect the innovations around it. My presentations, I'm going to focus a little bit, I'm going to gear our attentions a little bit to something different. Now that we have all the AIs and the sensor and connected devices, Internet of Things. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of how IT and OT being melded into the digital transformations of CIP, critical infrastructure protections, and how it's actually impacting our business environment and even our lives. And I'll promise it's going to be brief. So let's frame the problem. What is it exactly the issue here? Given that all these IoT, Internet of Things devices are being poised to be more pervasive in our life, in our work environment. Well, here's the challenge. The challenge is that most of the people think of the cyber element of CIP, the protection of IT assets only, the information technology assets. So we're talking about servers, computers, network switches, and they are forgetting the whole other side of it. This is really where the challenge is. Well, just as important that we need to protect the IT assets, we need to protect the operational technology. I'm talking about Internet of Things. I'm talking about the connected devices. Well, why it's the case? Why it's so critical to focus on the OT itself as well? Because if you look at the operational technologies, most of the operational network, our networks within most of the enterprises, contains hundreds to thousands of devices, connected devices. And most of those devices actually communicating at using non-standard protocols. And that's really the critical. So what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about industrial controllers, DCS. I'm talking about the HVAC systems. I'm talking about seismic sensors for perimeter intrusion systems. I'm talking about the radars. I'm talking about access controls. I'm talking about the video management system, the cameras. And I'm talking about even your home automation systems, our Amazon Chromes, or Alexa, or whatever you have at home. The issue here is these capabilities, all these connected devices, are bringing a lot of efficiency in our lives, bringing a lot of added value, a return on investments in our businesses, but increasing and extending the cyber surface attack. And they got to be protected. That's really the essence of it. So what's the big deal about this? What's the risk? Why we're talking about this? Well, the fear is, especially for most of the enterprise leaders, the business leaders, that if these systems gets in the wrong hands, they can literally shut down the operation. This is for real. You probably already heard a couple, without naming any companies, but at least a couple highly critical infrastructure companies where their system was literally shut down for more than 2 months. This is very critical. This goes beyond data breaching. It goes beyond identity thefts. And so that's really a critical thing to think about, because it has a major, significant impact on the business itself. And I'm not talking only about cost here, or how, what time would it take? I said a couple months, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to bring the system back live. And think of, if you were an oil and gas company, I don't think you want to wish to be your system shut down for even a couple days, because that's money. So let me give you a little comparison here, what we're talking about, why this is very, very serious. So I'm doing here, if you look at the slide, I'm presenting a comparative analysis between the IT and the OT. And as you can see, obviously, when we talk about a cyber attack on the IT side, we're talking about maybe 3 points of data entry at most. And we all are familiar, since the 80s, we had a lot of viruses going around. And so maybe it takes you, what, a couple hours? Your IT folks in your department can manage to bring you back, change your password, because a lot of people, they just choose the default password, double zeros, or 4 zeros, or 1, 2, 3, 4. So just change that, or put a firewall, and you're back on track. And here's another deal. With the IT stuff, it's very simple and easy, because at the end of the day, how many times you change your PC? At most, if the lifespan of a PC no more than, what, 8 months? 18 months at most. And you're going to have to change the PC. Once you change the PC, you get more protection, more virus protection, and what have you. Now, let's look at the other side of it. Oops. Let's look at the other side of it. Now, if I talk about operational technologies, and I'm talking about sensors, remember I said thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of sensors that you have? And these sensors are being implemented for many, many years. I said non-standard, some of them, they're still running as of today on non-standard protocols. Okay? Now, to bring, first of all, the data entry for any malicious act, we're talking about thousands of data points that can actually penetrate that system. Now, try to recover that, and this is why you got people, companies, that they would take them, months, if it's not weeks, to recover their system. And here's another element. I talked about cost and the impact of the cost. In fact, if you think about it, and given the autonomous and what digital transformations are given to us, if some malicious act gets into those systems, and because he or she does not know the dynamics of that autonomous system, that could actually result into tragedies. Because if you have machineries running with these sensors all over the map, and this guy who actually hacked into your system, he or she does not know the orders. And they may mess up with the operating system, and therefore, it could have been catastrophic. And so, IT, honestly, if you look at the big picture nowadays, IT is just the top of the iceberg of the actual problem. So, and if you look at companies, they're still not given the importance to the OT. A lot of focus primarily are given to the IT. So what's the solutions, and how people are being addressing this? And especially for emerging regions like Dubai and the Middle East here, it is absolutely essential that you actually define your design system. Whenever you look at the design components, you really need to think of it from a converged perspective. Obviously, in the industry, especially for the cyber technologies, people, they rely heavily on NIST, which is the right thing to do, by the way. Here, in our practice, Parsons, we use Domain 6, which is, in NIST framework, there are 5 generic steps that you need to follow, which are the right, and those are usually the backbone of most of the cyber technology components that you see in the market. We are creating an additional layer, a sixth domain, that's the domain 6 name comes into. And basically what that does, it's basically extending beyond the norms. We're trying to make sure that we protect, first of all, we design the system based on a converged solution. And what I mean about converged, basically it is a physical, built-in cyber capabilities at the same time. You can't do that separately nowadays. Any design that you do, you have to think of it from a converged perspective. And most importantly, you need to protect the IT and the OT side of it. That's very, very critical. Next, by other point, I want to summarize the briefing here, that it is critical that you need to have this cyber attack plan done in a more centralized leadership. You can't afford to have a department looking after the IT and another department looking after the OT. These are merged. IT is actually an integral part of OT, and OT is an integral part of IT. As I said earlier, most of our networks are sitting on top of these two. You're going to have to deal with them at the same time. And so our experience shows that it is very critical to have a centralized leadership to look and monitor this. Of course, you would have to have a process in place to monitor and measure all these activities to actually have the enterprise manage more effectively these cyber attacks. And that's pretty much it. So that gets to the end of my presentation. And I thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have.